Hit that bitch. Yeah. In the scuba dive tank. Yeah. Hurry up. Hit that hoe. Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. You can't touch this.
What's that?
You can't touch this.
Well, then get the fucking thing running. My wife cannot be without air conditioning.
No, it don't matter. I'm freezing on my hating. When I walk out the door, she a crybaby. Pull her hair from the back, I be killing it. No mechanic, I really be drilling it. I ain't see that.
In the early evening of December 12, 2022, a 30-year-old father went to a restaurant parking lot for what should have been a routine custody exchange with his ex-girlfriend. But what he didn't know was that he wouldn't walk away alive moments. Later, he lay dying on the cold pavement, shot by the mother of his child while her new partner looked on. No one could have predicted the chilling series of events that would unfold in those few minutes. This is the tragic story of Tyrone Darling, Jr. His story takes us to Arlington, Texas, a city in the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex known for its sports, stadiums, and suburban neighborhoods. Like many American cities, Arlington has its share of domestic disputes, but rarely do they end in such calculated violence. And it was in this city that Tyrone Darling would meet his untimely fate. December 12th began as an ordinary Monday in Arlington. The weather was mild, around 58 degrees with scattered clouds. For Tyrone, it was a day marked on his calendar for a scheduled custody exchange. He was supposed to meet his ex-girlfriend, Tamyiah Williams, at Lisa's Chicken Restaurant to pick up their child. At 4:37 p.m., security cameras captured Tyrone's Honda Accord pulling into the restaurant parking lot. He chose a spot in the northeast corner, away from the main entrance, a location with good visibility. Text messages recovered from his phone would later reveal his caution. At 4:39 p.m., he messaged a friend. Waiting for the exchange. Same. Spot as always got here early to make sure everything goes smooth. Tyrone remained in his vehicle, occasionally checking his phone. The court-ordered exchange was scheduled for 5:00 p.m., but at 4:52 p.m., he sent another text that would prove, tragically, prophetic. They just pulled in. Something feels off. Wish you could have come with me today. That instinct that something was different this time was right on target. At 4:51 p.m., security footage shows a black Toyota Camry entering the parking lot. The car belonged to Tamyiah Williams, but it wasn't her behind the wheel. It was her new partner, 23-year-old Sherod. Instead of parking across the lot as they normally did during exchanges, Sherod deliberately pulled the vehicle directly next to Tyrone's car on the driver's side, leaving barely enough space for a person to stand between the vehicles. This positioning would later be highlighted by investigators as the first indication that what was about to happen wasn't spontaneous, but planned. At 4:53 p.m., Tyrone exited his vehicle. From the Toyota, he could see Tamyiah in the passenger seat and their child in the back seat. For 23 seconds, Tyrone stood beside his car, waiting for Tamyiah to bring their child to him, as was their usual practice. But at 4:54 p.m., it wasn't Tamyiah who stepped out of the car. It was Sherod. The footage clearly shows her approaching Tyrone aggressively, right hand extended with her index finger pointed at his face. Though the security camera captured no audio, witnesses inside, the restaurant would later tell police they heard raised voices. The shorter woman was yelling something about respect and how he wouldn't be a problem anymore, recalled one witness. The man had his hands up like he was trying to calm things down. The footage confirms this account. Tyrone can be seen backing away with his hands raised in a non-threatening posture as Sherod advances toward him. She then makes physical contact, pushing his chest with both hands. Rather than retaliating, Tyrone continues backing toward the rear of his vehicle. At 4:55 p.m., the passenger door of the Toyota opens and Tamyiah Williams steps out. The child remains in the back seat, watching through the window. Instead of bringing the child for the exchange, Tamyiah reaches back into the vehicle. The security camera captures her retrieving something from the glove compartment. The next 47 seconds would seal Tyrone's fate. Tamyiah approaches Tyrone, who is still backing away from Sherod. When she raises her right hand, the security footage shows the unmistakable outline of a handgun, later identified as a 9mm Ruger. Witnesses report hearing Tamyiah shout, "You'll never take my baby from me." At 4:56 p.m., with Tyrone cornered between the two women and a parked SUV, Tamyiah fires twice. The first bullet strikes him in the chest. The footage shows him clutching his torso as he falls to one knee. The second shot hits him in the neck as he's collapsing. 3 witnesses immediately call 911, As restaurant staff rush outside, Sherod and Tamyiah calmly return to their vehicle. The footage shows Sherod entering the driver's seat, while Tamyiah returns to the passenger side. Their child remains in the back seat, having witnessed the entire incident. The Toyota exits the parking lot at 4:57 p.m., just 3 minutes after they had arrived. Emergency responders reach the scene at 5:04 p.m. Despite their immediate efforts, Tyrone Darling is pronounced dead at 5:23 p.m., lying in the same parking lot where he had come simply to see his child. The entire encounter lasted less than 7 minutes from arrival to departure. But in those 7 minutes, a father lost his life, a child lost their parent, and 2 women committed an act that would send them to prison for decades. In the chaotic aftermath, as police secured the scene and interviewed witnesses, one detail emerged repeatedly in statements: the calm, almost rehearsed way both women acted before, during, and after the shooting. This wasn't a crime of passion. Detective Maria Suarez would later note, the positioning of the vehicle, the coordination between suspects, and the retrieval of the weapon at a precise moment. None of this suggests an impulsive act. But how did a custody arrangement between former partners deteriorate to the point of murder? What transformed a relationship that had once produced a child into a deadly encounter in a public parking lot? And what role did Tamyiah's new partner, Sherod, play in escalating the conflict? To understand how Tyrone Darling ended up bleeding to death that December evening, we need to examine the history between these individuals, a history marked by a fractured relationship, bitter custody disputes, and the volatile introduction of a new partner who would forever alter the dynamic between a father and the mother of his child. Tyrone Darling was born on January 19, 1992, in San Antonio, Texas. He grew up in a supportive family environment that encouraged him to pursue his passions and develop his talents. Those who knew Tyrone described him as determined, hard-working, and committed to creating a better future for himself and those he loved. By the time he was 30, Tyrone had established himself in Arlington, Texas, where he worked as a security guard, a job that provided stability and a steady income. Though it wasn't glamorous work, it offered something crucial for a young father: reliability. His colleagues at the security company described him as punctual, responsible, and detail-oriented, qualities that served him well in a profession that demanded vigilance and professionalism. Tyrone was the type who'd never call in sick unless he was really down bad, recalled a former co-worker. He took his responsibilities seriously, whether that was watching a property or taking care of his kid. But behind the uniform was a man with bigger dreams. In his free hours, Tyrone transformed into an aspiring rapper, pouring his experiences and hopes into lyrics that spoke of a better tomorrow. Music had been a passion of his since elementary school. Growing up, he drew inspiration from artists like Tupac, Jay-Z, Drake, and Kendrick Lamar, performers who combined raw talent with powerful storytelling. Tyrone wrote his own songs and recorded them whenever he could. He uploaded tracks to YouTube and SoundCloud under his artist name, building a small but dedicated following. His lyrics often reflected on the challenges of growing up, the responsibilities of manhood, and his dreams for his family's future. In one of his tracks he rapped, "I got a bed, yeah, she kind of crazy, but no, she's not average, she all about cabbage, it stuck with your boy when they really wasn't. She told me she got my back. Say she gonna hold me down like a wave cap, or more could I ask for?" Other lyrics revealed his dedication to fatherhood and his desire to create a better life than the one he had known. "My son is it, like it's dead, but sometimes that shit made me sad, 'cause I don't want him to end up like his dad. Pissed at the world and always mad. So I gotta get it in 'cause I refuse to let them be like many men." Friends said Tyrone dreamed of eventually signing with a record label, collaborating with established artists, and perhaps one day touring to perform his music. But despite these aspirations, he never let his music career ambitions interfere with his responsibilities as a provider and father. It was in 2018 that Tyrone met Tamyiah Williams. Their connection was immediate and intense. Within a year of meeting, the couple welcomed a child together. Initially, they navigated the challenges of new parenthood as a team, with Tyrone balancing his security job, music aspirations, and family responsibilities. "He was so proud when that baby came," said a close friend who asked to remain anonymous. "Man changed his work schedule, put music on the back burner some days, whatever it took to be there for his kid." Those who knew the couple in these early days described them as happy, despite the normal stresses that come with raising a young child. Tyrone was hands-on from the beginning, taking night shifts with the baby, changing diapers, and making sure Tamyiah had the support she needed. His dedication to fatherhood wasn't something he took lightly. It was everything to him. Friends noted that he'd give up recording sessions in a heartbeat if his child needed him. Even as his relationship with Tamyiah began to show signs of strain, his commitment to being present in his child's life never wavered. Fatherhood changed him, observed a family member. He started thinking long-term, saving more, planning for the future. Everything became about giving that kid opportunities he didn't have. Balancing the demands of security work, his music ambitions, and fatherhood wasn't easy. Tyrone often worked extra shifts when necessary, adjusted his music recording schedule, and made countless compromises to fulfill his responsibilities. His typical day involved waking up early for his security shift, working a full day, spending time with his child in the evening, and then after bedtime turning to his music, often recording late into the night. This grueling schedule was sustainable as long as his relationship with Tamyiah remained solid. The couple had created a system where they supported each other's goals while co-parenting, but beneath the surface, tensions were growing. By 2021, cracks in their relationship had become impossible to ignore. Friends observed arguments becoming more frequent and intense. The disagreements centered around parenting styles, financial responsibilities, and Tyrone's music career, which Tamyiah reportedly felt took too much time away from family. They were just different people with different visions, explained someone close to the situation. Tyrone was all about building something, security job to pay bills now, music for the future. Tamyiah seemed to want more immediate changes. As the relationship deteriorated, the couple made the difficult decision to separate. What had once been a loving partnership devolved into increasingly hostile interactions centered around their child. Despite the tension, Tyrone remained committed to being present in his child's life. When they separated, the battle for custody began. Court records reveal multiple filings as both parents sought favorable arrangements. What emerged was a fragile compromise, a shared custody agreement that satisfied neither party. For Tyrone, the arrangement meant limited time with his child, while Tamyiah expressed frustration about schedule disruptions and what she perceived as Tyrone's inconsistent parenting. The custody exchanges became flashpoints, with witnesses describing visible tension, harsh words, and at least 2 incidents where police were called to intervene, though no arrests were made. Despite these challenges, those close to Tyrone emphasized that he never wavered in his love for his child. Even as the co-parenting relationship with Tamyiah grew more strained, he continued to show up for exchanges, follow the court-ordered schedule, and make the most of his time with his child. What no one could have predicted was how quickly and dramatically things would change when a new person entered the picture. A relationship that would ultimately lead to Tyrone's death in a restaurant parking lot during what should have been a routine custody exchange. When Tyrone and Tamyiah's relationship ended in 2021, what followed was more than just a breakup. It was the beginning of a bitter legal battle that would ultimately lead to tragedy. Court records reveal the intensity of the custody dispute that unfolded in the months after their separation. The initial custody filings painted a picture of 2 parents with fundamentally different views on how their child should be raised. Tyrone sought joint custody with significant parenting time, emphasizing his consistent involvement since the child's birth. Tamyiah, meanwhile, pushed for primary custody with limited visitation for Tyrone, citing concerns about his work schedule and music pursuits. It was like watching 2 people who once loved each other turn into adversaries, said a family court clerk who witnessed several of their hearings. You could feel the tension in the courtroom every time they appeared. By late 2021, after multiple contentious hearings, the court established a shared custody agreement. The arrangement required regular exchanges and detailed specifications about pickup times, locations, and how decisions regarding the child would be made. Neither Tyrone nor Tamyiah was entirely satisfied with the outcome. For Tyrone, the court-ordered schedule meant less time with his child than he wanted. For Tamyiah, it meant enforced interaction with someone she had grown to resent. What should have been a practical solution instead became another source of conflict. The custody exchanges became ticking time bombs, explained a friend of Tyrone's, who occasionally accompanied him. Every handoff felt like it could explode into something worse, and sometimes they did. Police records show that officers were called to intervene during exchanges on at least 2 occasions in late 2021. In one November incident, Responding officers noted in their report that both parents were highly agitated, though no physical altercation had occurred. No arrests were made, but the officers documented concerning levels of hostility that left their child visibly upset. The fragile peace established by the custody agreement was completely shattered in early 2022 when Tamyiah Williams began a relationship with 23-year-old Sherod. What had been a two-person conflict now became a triangle with dangerous dynamics. Sherod, according to those who knew her, quickly took an intense interest in Tamyiah's custody situation. Text messages obtained during the investigation reveal that just 2 months into their relationship, Sherod wrote to Tamyiah, "You shouldn't have to deal with him at all. There's ways to get full custody." By March 2022, Sherod had begun accompanying Tamyiah to custody exchanges, despite Tyrone's objections. Initially, she remained in the vehicle during these handoffs, but her presence alone altered the atmosphere significantly. When it was just Tamyiah and Tyrone, there was tension, sure, noted a friend who witnessed several exchanges. But when Sherod started showing up, the whole vibe changed. Tamyiah would barely look at him, just hand off the kid and relay messages. Through Sherod, who'd be watching from the car, it felt intentional, like they were trying to push him out. Court records show that between March and July 2022, Tamyiah made 3 formal complaints to family court, claiming Tyrone was hostile. During exchanges, none of these complaints resulted in modified court orders, as evidence was deemed insufficient. However, the pattern of accusations created paper trails that investigators would later scrutinize. By August 2022, Sherod had taken a more active role. Security footage from a gas station where one exchange occurred showed her exiting the vehicle, standing beside Tamyiah and engaging directly with Tyrone. The footage, though without audio, clearly displayed animated conversation and confrontational body language. Those who knew the couple described a troubling progression in their private conversations about Tyrone. A mutual friend who later spoke to investigators reported overhearing discussions about getting him out of the picture permanently as early as September 2022. At the time, the friend dismissed this as venting frustration, not realizing the foreshadowing these words contained. Sherod's influence extended beyond the custody exchanges themselves. Social media posts recovered from Tamyiah's accounts showed a dramatic shift in tone when discussing co-parenting. Earlier posts often expressed frustration but maintained boundaries. After Sherod's arrival, posts became more antagonistic with veiled references to eliminating problems and permanent solutions. The couple's dynamic created what psychologists would later describe as a reinforcement chamber, where each woman validated and amplified the other's negative feelings toward Tyrone. Text messages between them referenced him as the obstacle and the problem, dehumanizing language that experts suggest can precede violence. October and November 2022 saw the most concerning escalation. During an exchange at a public park, witnesses reported seeing Sherod exit the vehicle and approach Tyrone directly, pointing her finger in his face while Tamyiah remained in the car with the child. One witness described hearing Sherod tell Tyrone, "You won't be in the picture much longer." A week before the fatal encounter, Tyrone filed his own complaint with family court, requesting that exchanges occur only with the biological parents present. The hearing for this request was scheduled for December 14, 2022, 2 days after he was killed. Perhaps most telling were the search histories recovered from both women's devices. In the weeks leading up to December 12th, searches included how to get full custody after father is gone, what happens to child support if father dies, and self-defense laws in Texas. The final exchange before the murder occurred on November 28, 2022. Parking lot camera footage from that day showed both women exiting the vehicle during the exchange. While no physical altercation occurred, the body language suggested heightened tensions. Tyrone was seen backing away repeatedly, hands raised in a defensive posture. Text messages recovered from Tyrone's phone show his growing anxiety. In one message to a family member 3 weeks before his death, he wrote, "Every exchange is worse than the last. Now her girlfriend shows up too, watching me, making comments. I'm just trying to see my kid." Friends urged Tyrone to seek additional legal protection or to request supervised exchanges. One even offered to accompany him to future handoffs. On December 12th, that friend had a scheduling conflict. Tyrone went to Lisa's Chicken alone. What no one realized was that the pattern of escalation was building toward a devastating conclusion. The relationship between Tamyiah and Sherod had created a dangerous alliance, one that would ultimately cost Tyrone his life during what should have been a routine custody exchange just 2 weeks after that November encounter. As December 2022 approached, the custody exchanges had become so contentious that Tyrone regularly asked friends to accompany him. His instincts were right, but on the day it mattered most, he faced Tamyiah and Sherod alone, a decision that would prove fatal. As Tyrone Darling lay fatally wounded in the parking lot of Lisa's Chicken, Arlington Police Department officers converged on the scene. The first officers arrived at 5:04 p.m., securing the area with yellow crime scene tape, while paramedics attempted life-saving measures. The restaurant's patrons and staff, many still in shock, were kept inside as potential witnesses. The lead investigator from Arlington PD's homicide unit arrived at 5:32 p.m. Their first priority, obtain the security footage that multiple witnesses mentioned had captured the entire incident. "We knew immediately this was going to be a case built on video evidence," the detective later stated in court documents. "Witnesses were consistent in their descriptions, but having the actual footage meant we could see exactly what happened, without relying solely on memory or perception." The restaurant manager provided immediate access to the digital video system. 4 cameras covered the parking lot from different angles, offering investigators an unobstructed view of the entire encounter. The high-definition footage provided clear facial identification of both suspects and captured the license plate of the Toyota Camry. While the technical team extracted the video, officers interviewed 17 witnesses, 9 inside the restaurant, 5 in the parking lot, and 3 passing motorists who had stopped after seeing the commotion. Their accounts aligned remarkably well, describing the confrontational approach, the retrieval of the weapon, and the calm manner in which both women departed the scene. One witness, a retired military medic who attempted to help Tyrone before paramedics arrived, provided particularly valuable testimony. The shorter woman was clearly the aggressor initially, forcing him backward. The taller woman seemed to know exactly what she was doing when she went back to the car. It wasn't panic. It was purposeful. They worked together like they had discussed this beforehand. By 6:15 p.m., just over an hour after the shooting, Arlington PD had issued an all-points bulletin for Tamyiah Williams, Chanel Sherod, and the black Toyota Camry. The bulletin included the crucial detail that a child was likely still in the vehicle. The Couch vehicle registration led officers directly to Tamyiah Williams' address, an apartment complex just 3.2 miles from the crime scene. However, initial surveillance showed no sign of the Toyota in the parking lot or immediate vicinity. At 7:42 p.m., a significant break came from an unexpected source. The child's maternal grandmother contacted police after receiving a disturbing call from Tamyiah. According to the grandmother's statement, Tamyiah had called asking her to take the child immediately, saying only that something happened with Tyrone and that she needed to go away for a while. The grandmother, unaware of what had transpired but concerned by her daughter's tone, agreed to meet at a relative's house 8 miles from the crime scene. She then contacted authorities, providing this new location to investigators, Arlington PD, coordinated with the U.S. Marshals North Texas Fugitive Task Force, establishing surveillance at the relative's home at 8:15 p.m. At 8:47 p.m., the black Toyota entered the neighborhood, but drove past the house without stopping. Task force members followed at a distance, requesting backup. When the vehicle parked at a motel on Division Street, officers moved in with tactical precision. Both women were apprehended without incident at 9:02 p.m., less than 5 hours after the murder. The child was not in the vehicle, having been dropped off with the grandmother as planned. A search of the motel room they had just checked into revealed packed bags, $4,700 in cash, and Tamyiah's passport. Sherod's laptop showed recent searches for bus routes to Mexico and crossing border without ID. The handgun used in the shooting was recovered from a compartment beneath the Toyota's spare tire. Ballistics tests would later confirm it matched the bullets recovered from Tyrone's body. Gunshot residue tests on both women came back positive. During initial questioning, both attempted to claim self-defense. Sherod told detectives, "He came at us aggressively. We were scared for our lives and for the child." This account directly contradicted the video evidence and witness testimonies. When confronted with the security footage showing Tyrone's defensive posture and lack of aggression, both women refused to answer further questions and requested attorneys. On December 14, 2022, just 2 days after the murder, both Tamyiah Williams and Sherod were formally charged with first-degree murder. Additionally, both face charges of conspiracy to commit murder, endangering the welfare of a child, unlawful use of a weapon, and flight to avoid prosecution. The Tarrant County District Attorney announced the decision to try both women as equal participants in the crime, citing the coordinated nature of their actions and clear evidence of prior planning. The preliminary hearing was set for January 2023, with both women held without bail due to the severity of the charges and the demonstrated flight risk. "This wasn't a crime of passion," stated the district attorney at the press conference announcing the charges. "The evidence suggests months of escalation, deliberate planning, and cold execution. We intend to pursue this case to the fullest extent of the law." As the legal process began, attention turned to the child who had witnessed their father's murder from the back seat of the car. After temporary emergency placement with the maternal grandmother, family court intervened to determine the most appropriate long-term arrangement. Given the circumstances of the case and the involvement of both the mother and her partner in the father's death, the court made the decision to place the child with Tyrone's parents. They were granted temporary custody pending further hearings. Child psychologists were immediately brought in to help the child process the trauma of witnessing their father's murder. Experts in childhood trauma noted that children who witness parental homicide face unique psychological challenges that can impact development for years to come. As the investigation concluded and the legal process moved forward, the focus shifted to understanding how this tragedy could have been prevented. Law enforcement officials, family court representatives, and domestic violence experts began examining the warning signs that had preceded the murder. "There were multiple red flags," noted one detective: escalating confrontations during exchanges, dehumanizing language in text messages, explicit threats, and concerning online searches. The system needs better mechanisms to identify and respond to these warning signs before they culminate in violence. For the Arlington community, the murder at Lisa's Chicken became more than just another crime statistic. It sparked a broader conversation about the dangers that can arise during custody disputes and the need for greater protections during exchanges, a conversation that would ultimately lead to significant changes in how the city handled high-conflict custody cases. The legal proceedings against Tamyiah Williams and Sherod moved with unusual speed. Facing overwhelming evidence, including high-definition video footage, digital footprints suggesting premeditation, and 17 consistent witness statements, both women's legal teams recognized the difficult battle ahead. In July 2023, just 7 months after Tyrone Darling's murder, both defendants accepted plea agreements rather than face trial. Tamyiah Williams received a 40-year sentence for first-degree murder, while Sherod received 35 years for her role as an accomplice and instigator. Both women will be eligible for parole after serving a minimum of 85% of their sentences. During the sentencing hearing, Tyrone's mother addressed both women directly. "You didn't just take my son. You robbed a child of their father and created trauma that will last a lifetime. Your selfishness destroyed multiple families." The most profound impact of this crime fell on the child who witnessed their father's murder. Now in the permanent custody of Tyrone's parents, the child receives specialized trauma therapy. Court documents indicate the child experiences nightmares, anxiety, and behavioral issues stemming from witnessing the violence. Child psychology experts note that children who witness parental homicide face unique psychological challenges. They must process not only the loss of one parent, but also the violent actions and subsequent absence of the other. This creates profound attachment and trust issues that can persist throughout development. In response to Tyrone's murder, Arlington implemented new protocols for custody exchanges. The city established designated exchange zones with continuous video monitoring at police stations and family service centers. Court-appointed monitors became more readily available for high-conflict custody situations. Family court judges now receive additional training to identify escalation patterns and potential violence risk factors. When concerning behavior appears, courts can mandate supervised exchanges, cooling-off periods, and conflict resolution education. A family court judge who reviewed the case for judicial training purposes noted, "The tragedy here is that intervention was possible. Multiple opportunities existed where different choices by courts, family members, or the individuals themselves could have prevented this outcome. For Tyrone's family, no amount of systemic change can fill the void left by his death. His parents now balance their own grief while raising their grandchild. His siblings have become advocates for custody exchange safety, speaking at community events about the warning signs they wish they had recognized sooner. Tyrone just wanted to be a father to his child, his father said in a television interview, 6 months after the sentencing. Now we're trying to keep his memory alive while helping his child heal. No custody disagreement should ever cost someone their life. The murder of Tyrone Darling serves as a stark reminder of how quickly conflicts can escalate to deadly violence. For families navigating high-conflict custody situations, experts recommend maintaining detailed records of all interactions, utilizing neutral third parties during exchanges, and immediately reporting concerning behavior to authorities. As one advocate put it, what happened to Tyrone Darling wasn't inevitable. It was the culmination of escalating warning signs that weren't adequately addressed. His story reminds us that custody exchanges aren't just logistical matters. They can be moments of vulnerability that require proper safeguards. Tyrone's legacy now lives on not only through his music and the child he loved, but also through the changes his death inspired, changes that may prevent other families from experiencing similar tragedies in the future.